one of directors that every film student should be studying. Before I get started, make sure to share, subscribe, and ring the bell. Now, when I'm looking for a director that gives me practical information, I don't just mean really, really good directors. I am a huge Quentin Tarantino fan, but he is such a style unto himself, there's really no way to study and emulate him without coming off like a secondhand version of him. Steven Spielberg is one of the most acclaimed directors in history, but he's kind of like a magician who's reluctant to show you how it's done. Which leads me to number 1, Kevin Smith. Wait, what? The Silent Bob guy? Yes, the Silent Bob guy. And no, he's not on my list because he went to the protest of one of his own movies just because he thought it'd be funny. Although that is helping. It's because he is one of the great communicators. And that's a skill that goes across the board. Actors, musicians, whoever. I could go on forever about this, but if a performer feels like they know what's going on, they will give the absolute best performance they can. A really good contrast for this is when Samuel L. Jackson described how they filmed this scene. They told him you're fighting a CGI monster. And he's asking real questions like, okay, where is it? And they tell him, it's wherever you want. He's like, okay, how big is it? And they look at each other and they say, okay, it's the size of an SUV. And he's like, okay, how fast is it? If you actually watch the interviews where he talks about this scene, he's never openly belittling or mocking anyone. Maybe he's too polite for that, I don't know. But honestly, if you just watch really the entire film, it does have a kind of a lack of continuity that just seems kind of wooden. Even though they had some of the best actors in the business doing this film. Kevin Smith has done a lot of lectures and presentations on how his process really works. He does explain really well how to get through to an actor and how to get the best possible performance out of them. This skill really shows with the movie Jersey Girl. George Carlin was pretty open about his own personal shortcomings as an actor. When George Carlin hosted the very first Saturday Night Live ever, he was so worried about giving a bad performance, he didn't want to do any sketches. So for him to do a full-length feature film, it was just not an everyday thing. It wasn't unheard of, but he just generally avoided them. And keep in mind, he's in 3 Kevin Smith movies. Number 2, Penny Marshall. The reason she makes the list is that she was absolutely fantastic at the 2 most important things that any storyteller can aim for: empathy and logic. I don't care what the genre, what the story, who's telling the story, empathy and logic are absolutely crucial. Logic is easy to understand. If, on some level, every good story has to make some kind of internal sense, even a fantasy. But empathy is way more important. Think about it. If you don't share the emotions of a character, you're not going to care what happens to them. An example of an audience not empathizing with a movie character is any bad slasher film. We have all been there. Somebody's there getting hacked to death right in front of us, and you just really don't care because we haven't empathized with them. We're not sharing their pain in any way. If you want a scene with amazing character empathy, watch the scene in A League of Their Own when the mailman announces that, hey ladies, one of your husbands is dead, but I'm not going to tell you which one it is because I'm a dick. The tension and fear becomes very real. There's this horrible silence that they all share. And I promise, if you watch that scene with a group of friends, they will go quiet too because they are sharing in those emotions. Most of this information is in her autobiography, My Mom Was Nuts. I would recommend this book to absolutely everyone. First of all, it's hilarious. And it explains her style of film directing along with just being just really fun. And yes, it must be said, there is no crying in baseball. Number 3, Paul Greengrass. He made my list for a very specific reason. This British director seems to be the only human on the planet who knows how to use a shaky cam. Oh, tons of directors use shaky cam, but Greengrass seems to be the only one who knows how to do it in a way that actually adds to the story and doesn't just look like you gave the camera to an alcoholic and seriously teased. Sorry, I just really hate shaky cam. But Greengrass does do it well. Now, shaky cam is different than handheld cam. Handheld cam is a person physically holding the camera without the aid of some kind of mechanical device or a tripod. This can make you feel like you're actually part of the sequence, part of the story. Again, it goes back to empathy. We feel the scene, we feel like we're part of the story, but at no time is it hard to figure out what I'm actually looking at. Bad directors use shaky cam to cover up things like bad stunt work, boring parts of the story, or, I don't know, because they think it's good for some genuinely inexplicable reason. God, I hate shaky cam. Number 4. Robert Zemeckis. And no, he's not on my list because Back to the Future inspired every intro graphic I've made since 2013. Although, that helps. He is great at empathy, consistency, storytelling, and yes, creating visual effects that will add to the story, and are distinct enough that people will remember them after the movie is over. Polar Express is largely built on visuals that will make people feel like they are in the movie. Who Framed Roger Rabbit is just a weird idea that was done perfectly to make a great film. And yes, fire trails are always awesome. And finally, number 5, James Cameron. He is great at all the qualities that I've already gone over, but where he really stands out is how he will light a scene. Avatar is the most obvious example of this, using heavy contrast from light to shadow to give a visual punch, but my favorite example of his style is The Abyss. Everything under the water is very blue and very dark. Above the water, there is more color, but it also has this kind of grayish hue to it. Then we finally see the first alien craft, and it's described as a dance of light. Well, there you have it, part 1 of directors that everybody should be studying. I am currently working on part 2. If you think there's someone else I should be looking at, feel free to comment, and thanks for watching.